We stand for the pledge of allegiance. Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Presentations of Student of the Month, volunteers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would like to start with the March Scott County Schools Volunteers of the Month. As always, we're greatly appreciative of the time and efforts you give to our children in schools of Scott County. We have from Huntsville Elementary, Felicia Buckle. We also have from Winfield Elementary, Lisa Ellis and Loretta Davis. This time also too, we would like to announce the Scott County Chamber of Commerce Stand Student of the Month from March from Scott High School. Elijah Fletcher is the March Student of the Month. He was nominated by one of his senior teachers. Elijah is described as being a hard worker. He is kind to others and often volunteers to help. He plans to attend TCAT upon graduation from Scott High School.
Yay, Fletcher.
And Mr. Chairman, that concludes the March Volunteers and Student of the Month.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anyone from the audience who wants to speak? We'll allow 5 minutes. Mr. Strand?
No, we don't take 5 minutes. I do have one major complaint. Why is Bill Hall having a board meeting at the Tennessee game playing in the SEC tournament?
We put it on TV for you. I didn't do that.
Now, I know there's been a lot of discussion about expenditures and schools, and I want to simplify this and get it down to what really matters, and that's for the kids.
Absolutely.
I want to get rid of the controversy and talk about it. All I want to talk about tonight, and I'll stay well within 5 minutes, is we've done a little research on a playroom, and there's a research. It's not a technical document. I know you have to get architects involved and get down to the nitty-gritty, but we feel for somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000, we could get a good playroom over to Huntsville Elementary. And I just want to say, I think we need that. I'd love to see you all seriously consider it and look into that expenditure, because there are a lot of good teachers, a lot of good people. It's the second largest school by attendance. And I really hope you could consider that. I know you make a lot of hard decisions. We don't begrudge any of the expenditures and what you have in your schools. I think it's great. We don't care about any of that. We just want to see if we can get into the rotation. So I want to be brief. Appreciate your consideration. You know, I'm not here for a tit for tat. All I want to do is help the kids at Huntsville School.
Absolutely.
And I hope it comes across that way.
Yeah.
So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul, and I'll thank you guys for coming. I know you've sent us some estimates and those things as far as expenditures that's been spent out. You know, did a lot of hard work, research onto that. I'll say that, and I think I'll speak to this board. I think we want to help anywhere and everywhere that we can. I think there've been some false narratives placed up there also too. Where they get started, I don't know. But I know we went and done our own estimate. I think Mr. Shannon had some people going on. This is a whole lot less than what it came through. And I don't,
If it's less, that's great.
yeah, it's extremely great.
Is it a new building?
What we have was a new building, yes, it's totally new. I mean, ground up, new building without the demolition, I would think, Mr. Shannon. This is the first time we've had people over there doing this. I know we've had people, Alan Hill's gone over several times. It's not a fact that, and I can say when we come in this job 11 years ago, one of the things that was placed on a 5-year plan was this in place here. We never really could find what we wanted to do, how we wanted to do it, and those type of things. We always run into a little obstacle as far as for money. And I'll say our job here, and the board will tell you the first thing when they go to a meeting, and I don't know, Paul, first of all, thank you for your service. You served Scott County Schools for 6 years, I think at that time, was it?
Yep, in fact, your family helped me run
Yeah,
the
we was part of the process of getting you in there. I'll say going door to door. And thank you for that. And you know, the first thing they're taught is not to build buildings. We've been here 11 years now. We've built one building that's come from our general purpose funding. And that was a bus garage that was about to fall in. because we were not getting any help from what we needed and what we had to do. So we did that. The gym at Fairview is not built with general purpose funds. It's built with the ESSER funding, and the ESSER 3.0 funding that came through. It's not from a general purpose fund that taxpayers are going to pay this back. This was from, it was also, we had a committee, had 29 people on the committee. We asked for commissioners, we asked for all the board, we asked for central office staff here, we asked for people from the communities. We put stuff out like people would come in, and everybody on the committee is 100% to move forward with how we spent the ESSER 3. It was never not a thing ever to neglect this or do this. And I'm glad you got this, because this makes me feel better as far as what we can do. Now, of course, I'm still going to go to county commissioner and ask. Okay, not saying that this board, if they want to decide we do this, absolutely. This is their budget. They operate this. If I make a recommendation, it would be for a fact that we could do it. I would not recommend if we fall below the expenditures of not being able to operate 2 months from a physical nature if we had a catastrophe in our general purpose, or should I say in our reserve. We have a healthy reserve. We've spent out of our reserve. We've done a lot of things out of reserve to alleviate things from the taxpayers, because we've been able to. But as I've talked to this board for the past several months, we have to slow that down, simply because of being able to operate if we had a catastrophe. Now, like I said, we'll ask from there, that perspective, and I'll start on March the 20th, going there.
And Bill, let me add that if you look at Huntsville, which has an average of about 500 kids per year, and you look at that over, what, 30 years, and we
Yes.
haven't had all that to make, and then you look at, what is it, $3,500 per child, the education department gives, that's what, in 30 years, that'd be about $52 million.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of money been brought in by just Huntsville,
Absolutely.
but I don't feel the expenditures as a percentage.
I agree, when looking at it, I agree 100%.
So if we could look at that
Yeah.
and be objective and give Huntsville some due and some, we would just be happy.
Yeah.
Again, we're not anti what you spend for other schools. Bless your hearts for getting it. But Huntsville, I feel like, has just not had the luck of getting the draw.
Yeah.
It's the board mix up over the years, but whatever it is, the money says it's not been spent at Huntsville.
Mhm.
And as a percentage of expenditure, it's there.
Yeah.
And as per student expenditure, I would say, you'd have an issue. So
Yeah.
please look at that objectively, I know you will.
Absolutely.
And I think once you do, you'll agree that you need to help us somehow.
Mhm.
And at least maybe the next expenditure you make, whatever it is, will be Huntsville. And I'd appreciate it.
Going this out, if the board approves this, and we're going to move forward, this, of course, it's got to be bid, it has to go through that process.
course, yeah.
Get architects involved, and
I understand.
you understand all the,
Yes, sir.
how it goes.
And you've done
So,
that on the other projects, and I understand that. But I just hope Huntsville's next, that's all we're begging for, and that's all we want you to consider, and we appreciate that.
thank you
Very
for your
much.
time, thanks for everybody for coming tonight, too. Thank you for the way you handle things, I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know you'll be professional as well, handling your school.
Absolutely.
We appreciate that. It's not easy sitting up there. Like you said, I've done it. I know it's hard.
Yeah.
And we appreciate it.
I just think that you need to realize also, it's like Mr. Hall said, we did look at the playroom last year, and it was a lot of money that we were gonna build a new school, a new playroom, not a new school, a new playroom. We did look at that. This board does want to do things to help. That's like we discussed during the work session the other night. If we can get bleachers in there, it's not new, but if that's something we can do, we would like to do that.
Miss Terry, I appreciate it, but I'm talking about pure numbers. I mean, I had a boss once tell me, he gave me a raise, and he said, Paul, he said, let me tell you something. Pats on the back are great, but what a company really cares about you is what they pay you. Pats on the back of Huntsville School is great, but what you spend on this is not there. I mean, it's just pure numbers. I'm not angry at you. But if you look statistically at the numbers and the revenue Huntsville brings in from the kids and the expenditures over 50 years, 30 years, it's not there. It's not your fault, Miss Terry.
No, I realize that,
But the
but
numbers aren't there, so all I want to do is fix the numbers. I appreciate the intent, but we've had intent for a lot of years. We really need some help for those students. My students can't sit on intent, they sit on the floor. So please help us get something concrete for the kids, and I'd appreciate it.
yes, and that's what we spoke about last week, that we would try to do something. And we also spoke about that the numbers we were presented, that was not numbers that the school board had spent.
Actually,
That
that's
was
the
from the
numbers
county.
that we were given by your own department. And it was only on expenditures for things like buildings.
Buildings,
and
yeah.
Things like that.
That's county government, that's
Yeah,
kind of what you
I
call
didn't
county
count- I
government.
didn't count
Right.
expenses.
Yeah.
But you asked for
Because-
that.
But that
Yeah.
was county
You went before
government.
the county
Yeah.
commission and asked for school, which was
Yeah.
desperately needed.
Yeah.
And you asked for, so that's what, I mean, if you don't have, I feel like you're gonna have $500,000 is somewhere. You know, we're not asking for, you know, 4 or 5 million, so I feel like that it's doable, just from what I think.
You'll have to make that.
Well, I'm
decision.
still gonna go to the county commission first.
Oh,
I'll start there,
absolutely.
because
The
it's their
meeting's back in
responsibility.
April, and we don't care
Yeah,
about.
it's their responsibility.
And if we can help with that, let us know.
But when
That's
I
what-
get, and I'm just gonna say it, when I get on Facebook and I see stuff that's on there that is not true, this board has not earmarked money for bleachers for Scott High.
Well, people are
We
gonna
have
say what they
discussed-
hear. They're gonna
Yeah,
say what they
well,
hear.
it is,
And I'm
thank
glad-
God,
and
we
I'm-
are in a
and
free
Thank you for
country.
clarifying that. I'm glad you
Yeah.
haven't, because we'll be
I
in
do
front
wanna
of that.
clarify that,
Yeah.
for
And I'm sure
everybody
you'll,
in
I'm
this
sure
county
you'll put
and
us in
this
front of
room.
that, and that's good to hear. Appreciate you clarifying.
Because, and then when you get back on there and say, well, I wasn't pinpointing it at anyone.
We need to move
Well,
on.
my name's on the front of this, I'm on the school board, and you are pinpointing.
Miss Terry, we can talk about that offline sometime and we can debate it. I'd be happy to discuss that with you.
Well, I feel like
appreciate
this
anything
board
you do.
is owed an apology.
I don't think so.
Oh, I do.
I think Huntsville School, the elementary's probably do an apology, but we'll get out of that.
Guys,
Let's-
thank you
let's
for coming.
Miss Terry.
You guys, we'll
And
do our
there's
due diligence.
Facebook.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
And-
you all.
and
Thank
we'll-
all of you.
And we'll help you in any way we can. We appreciate your
Thank you.
consideration.
Yes,
We already go, thank you. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Do any principals or central office have anything new to bring? Not, Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I want to thank you guys for coming tonight. Really appreciate it for being here. Let's see, parent-teacher conference is Monday, March 20th. Sky High School, 3:30 to 6:30. And at middle school, elementary, from March 21st on Tuesday, from 4 to 7. I also like to announce that this Saturday, Mr. Henry, correct me if I'm wrong on times here, soccer play day will be at Scott High School, with the games beginning at 11:30. Is that correct?
Weather's somatic.
Weather's somatic. Also, I'd like to say Wednesday, March 15th, will be the abbreviated day at Scott High School. The bus will be leaving Scott High School at 12:30. Also, spring break, April 3rd to the 7th. And as chairman, that's all I have, unless you have questions for
Mr.
me.
Hall,
Yes.
9:30.
9:30, I'm sorry, 9:30. 9:30, thank you. Games begin at 9:30.
Okay, that brings us to item 7. In accordance with the Scott County Board of Education policy number 4.403, the Board of Education may include routine and non-controversial items on the consent agenda, which may be adopted by a single vote without discussion. Any item on the consent agenda may be removed and placed on the regular agenda for further consideration at the request of any board member. Do I have a motion to approve the items listed on the consent agenda? Approval for the minutes of February 2023, and approval of January 2023 bills and financial reports. Any discussion? If not, vote on roll call.
Mr. Silcox?
Aye.
Ms. Sharp? Ms. Terry?
Aye.
Ms. Kidd?
Aye.
Dr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Item 8A, pursuant to board policy number 2.201, the Scott County Board of Education needs to approve budget amendments as recommended by the Director of Schools. General Purpose Amendment number 5 and Federal Amendment number 8. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Not, vote on roll call.
Ms. Terry?
Aye.
Ms. Sharp?
Aye.
Ms. Kidd?
Aye.
Dr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Silcox?
Item 8B, board approval is needed for out-of-state and overnight trips. Need a motion and a second for the food service nutrition staff, Tennessee School Nutrition Association in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, on June 11th to the 16th, 2023. Huntsville Middle, Explore Government Facilities, March 29th to the 31st, 2023 in Nashville, Tennessee. Robbins Elementary Nutrition Department, March 26th through the 29th, 2023. And the Director at TOS 2023 Legislative and Learning Conference, March 28th, 29th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any discussion? Not vote on roll call?
Ms. Sharp?
Aye.
Ms. Kidd?
Aye.
Dr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Silcox? Ms. Terry?
Aye.
Okay. Item 8C, in accordance with Scott County Board of Education Policy Number 2.806 concerning bids and quotations, all purchases of supplies, materials, equipment, and contractual services in excess of $10,000 may be based on competitive bids. Related services for special education, OT, PT, speech, services for behavioral analyst, vision and hearing. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any discussion?
I thought that was 25.
It's 25.
It is 25. So we'll correct that in a minute.
Okay. Vote on the roll call?
Ms. Kim, did you second that?
Second.
Dr. Murphy?
Aye.
Ms. Kidd?
Aye.
Ms. Sharp?
Aye.
Ms. Terry?
Aye.
Mr. Silcox? Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye. Okay, item 8D, is the federal required to update our school reopening plan and public spending plan every 6 months through February the 30th of 2023. The addendums will give updated information on ESSER 2 and 3. Need a motion and a second for ESSER public spending plan agenda, safe return to in-person instruction, and continuity of service plan addenda.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Did you second that?
No, Teresa.
Teresa.
Vote on roll call.
Ms. Terry?
Aye.
Dr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Silcox? Ms. Sharp?
Aye.
Ms. Kidd?
Aye.
Brings us to item 8E, the textbook committee met and choose the books they would like to adopt. Envision Math is the adopted textbook series for the 2023 through the 2029 school years. Do I have a motion?
I make the motion. Second.
Any discussion? If not, vote on roll call.
Ms. Kidd?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Silcox? Ms. Terry?
Aye.
Ms. Sharp?
Aye.
Dr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye. Okay, item 8F, renewal of a food service bid. The school nutrition director recommends renewing the Genio turkey processing and Gold Creek chicken bid. Do I have a motion and a second to renew the Genio contract?
I make a motion. Second.
Any discussion? Vote on roll call.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Ms. Kidd?
Aye.
Ms. Sharp?
Aye.
Ms. Terry?
Aye.
Mr. Silcox? Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Dr. Murphy?
Aye.
Okay. Brings us to item 8G. The Finance Committee opened bids for the repaving of the Robbins Elementary Playground and referred them to the board. Award the bid of repaving the Robbins Elementary Playground to Miller and Sons and Company in the amount of $29,750. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote on roll call.
Ms. Terry?
Aye.
Ms. Kidd?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Dr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Silcox? Ms. Sharp?
Aye.
Okay, item 8H. We need a motion and a second to add the TSSAA sport of girls volleyball at Winfield Elementary School for the 2023-24 school year.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, vote on roll call.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Ms. Terry,
Aye.
Ms. Sharp,
Aye.
Ms. Kidd,
Aye.
Mr. Stanley,
Aye.
Dr. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Silcox.
Okay, item 8I, the ratification of psychologist and mental health services. As its February 9th regular meeting, the board awarded bids for school psychologist and mental health medication management services. These bid awards need to be ratified because action to submit these services to school board was not made by the county financial committee until its February 13th meeting. Do I have a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote on roll call.
Ms. Terry,
Aye.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Mr. Stanley,
Aye.
Dr. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Silcox, Ms. Sharp, Ms. Kidd.
Aye.
Brings us to item 8J. Mr. Silcox, do you have anything?
Yeah, has anybody seen the new bill that's on the table about, it's gonna be up to the board, our system, determining how many kids are in per classroom?
Correct. Yes.
You seen that?
Mhm.
So it's gonna be up to us to determine, what's the law state now, how many?
In grades K through 3, you can average 20, no more.
No more than 20?
One class could have 22, one class could have 14, but throughout your K through 3, all grades, you have to average 20 or less.
So this
Okay.
new law could, what would that do if that passed?
We could go lower, we could go, so I guess it'd be up to us. K 4 through 6 is 25, 7 through 12 is 30, am I correct
I
there?
think that's right.
Yeah, average.
But is that,
You can have up to 35, I think, and max to the
Yeah,
high school.
35 max, yeah. Yeah, and we have CTE rules. And
CTE can have 20 for a class.
Yeah.
So I know we mentioned last quote, we mentioned, not saying we're going to do zoning, about kids being in districts going to other schools. So what happens if we think about having one middle school? And all the elementaries be elementaries.
I'd be all for that.
I would. I just think smaller is better. I mean, I'll go all the way back. We wouldn't have Scott High if I had my way. Because I do believe education now is more about drugs. Trying to keep the kids drug-free.
Well, you would be smaller.
And the small schools have more guidance and things.
You would be smaller.
Okay.
You'd have 7 elementaries.
I think she means smaller
Middle school.
building,
Smaller,
not,
yeah.
not district-wide. I think she just means per building.
That's just my thought.
We're in the 40s now. They're sharpening you know.
I know.
If you start to hit him, let me know so I get out of the way.
But seriously.
But no joke. Now, I mean, we have to admit that drugs is a major problem in our schools everywhere.
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 Even
And we
in,
can't turn back the clock.
even in small counties, Pickett, Hancock,
They face the same thing.
they're facing the same thing.
I think that's about the same thing as they said about the football. You know, it'd been good to join and have one football team and everything.
What I'm saying is, you know, it was brought to my attention and I got to thinking about it, studying it and kind of drawing it out a little bit, running it through, having elementary schools and one middle school is going to eliminate a lot of problematic problems that we run into, that we face a lot of times, but.
Space.
Space, it's gonna fix the space problem. So,
So is your solution?
Where you gonna put 'em?
to
So
build?
your solution be Sky High be made in middle school
No.
and build Sky High in this school?
Huntsville be middle school.
Okay,
And I've also had it brought to my attention that we only need one principal in Huntsville.
Well, by law, though, you got so many kids, you have to have two.
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
But I'm just talking about if there was other solutions.
yeah,
don't think one principal could cover all that ground out
I
there.
think so.
About a half-mile walk across that building.
We're good with all of that.
So Tommy, if we do middle school at Huntsville, then we do not have to do a playroom, right? Because, or we do have to do a playroom. That would do away with
Huntsville's
that.
the only school in the county that has a playground.
And Huntsville's the only school in the county that does not have a gym, Huntsville Elementary.
Right.
No, but that's the thing though, if you break it up like that, elementaries, all the other elementaries don't have one either. What I'm saying is specifically, because they are split in two, that's where you run into the playroom and stuff. And I agree, they need the playroom.
So we're saying, so I guess we're saying we do with Huntsville Elementary in this plan?
Yes.
Yes, the
where
Huntsville
you gonna put
Elementaries
the
goes to all the other elementary schools. Now, I'm
So you're
not
gonna
saying-
rezone it. So
This
that
is
means
just
you want to
brainstorming.
rezone.
Brainstorming.
This is just brainstorming, and
Okay.
the zoning thing has been brought to me several times too, that we would not have the problems with space and lack of students at other schools if we did zone.
And like I said, I agree with that. Like I said in the meeting, my own daughter lives over in my district. Grandson goes to Birchville. Now, I don't agree with that myself. But it happens. What I'm saying is you'll ruffle a lot of feathers when you go to saying, you can't take a kid.
Well, I mean,
But what I'm saying is if whatever school they went to is what district they lived in,
but if you got a parent teaching at one school and their kids at another school, man, look at what that does to them.
I understand in certain situations. I told you.
But there also comes a time that we as the board have to look at money.
So I'm just suggesting, I'm not saying by far, I'm not saying that's the correct thing to do. I'm just saying, look at it like I did. Just look at it.
Well, what about the traffic problem with elementary and middle school now? It's hard enough to get them in there. If you had one big middle school, how would you handle all that traffic?
I don't think you'd have the same amount of traffic.
It'd be
Because
less.
it would have, I mean, people from Winfield are not gonna drive their middle school child down here to
No,
Huntsville.
they're gonna bus it.
They're gonna bus it.
Yeah.
You'll have less. If you'll just think about it, go to your middle schools, leave Huntsville out, okay? Go to your elementaries, go to Robbins, Fairview, Birchfield, count all their 6th through 8th, count your kids, okay? All of them will be going to the middle school. All of Huntsville's elementary was gonna be spread out and going to the elementary schools.
They'll
Okay.
take them to nine.
Hmm?
They'll take a
They'll
bunch
take
to
them
nine.
no.
They're doing it anyway.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna stop it.
Yeah.
And it's been brought up before about the sports. If we combine to one middle school, that's not fair, not gonna have as many playing. But we also have to look at what other sports could we offer if we combine it to one middle
Well, I
school.
think we're looking at a bunch of sports.
I'm
Like
just-
at Winfield, aren't we,
I'm
Miss
just
Stanley?
saying,
Are we looking at different sports for the kids
But not
at
every,
Winfield?
but not every school has enough kids to do different sports.
as a board member, I'm looking at it, if I'm looking for the betterment of the kids.
Right.
Not tradition, not just because my daddy went to Huntsville, I'm gonna go to Huntsville. We need to get that out of it. We need to look at what's better for the kids.
Well,
Not us, not what we want to do.
And
I
I mean,
went to
it-
Fairview, I want my kids to go to Fairview. Well, that might or might not be the best thing for that kid.
well, I mean, I can say, that I agree with that. I mean, I wanted to go to Winfield, and my mother wouldn't let me. You know, I laid out of school to go to Winfield, and I still couldn't go. But, I didn't want to teach it on night, so I didn't go to night.
You just want to drive with it.
That's it, I wanted low. But, I'll agree with, it will solve one sports thing that I keep hearing about is this coach asking this parent to move their kid to this school, because we want your kid. Well, it happens.
But just look at it, I'm just saying, open your mind up and just look at it. I mean,
Last night,
it might work, it might not.
I sat and watched my nephew's team play in the state tournament. And his dad, I was down in Dresden, Tennessee, and whenever we combined and made one school here, they fought to keep their small schools, just like Morgan County did. you know? And we know, we have to sit here and admit that Scott High has been in a league that they couldn't compete with. When parents would even come to me and say, I want to take a kid to Oneida because I think they can get in a state tournament by going up there. And football and basketball, you know, we've never hardly had that opportunity. That means a lot to a lot of parents, but we can't turn back the clock and have a small school now, you know? But, and I feel like we'd almost be making the same mistake if we went to one big middle school.
Well, and there's something else we need to look at. When we went to Jefferson City, and I talked to Mr. Hamby about this, they had a ninth grade academy.
You can ask Mr. Hall. I said, when I first came on the board, I said, or one of the retreats, I said, let's go by Spencer Ellis's thing and have Scott High, North or South, whatever we want to call it. And the kids that just go to vocational and don't do sports, move them over there to that other high school so that we can get in a league that we can compete with. I mean, we can sit here and think of a lot of different things that we could have done, but I just don't feel like we need to make another mistake like that. Now, that's me. But it will depend on what the public wants. I'll go with what the public wants, just like we did in the sports.
I'm just throwing it out there. Like I said, would it work? I don't know. Is it the best thing? I don't know. Just look at it and see what you.
And when I say that we as a board need to look at money at some point, goodness knows, I'm for doing what's best for the students. Don't get me wrong on that. But I'm just saying, in a couple of months, when we sit down and look at BEP, and we have, and I don't know about everybody, I've looked and I think a lot of us got the same email. We got an email last week from a TA. We got an email today from a teacher asking that these people get funded more because they're not making enough money and they're having to get another job.
Absolutely.
And when I say we have to start looking at money, that's what I'm talking about.
That's right.
That's because by our standards.
I'll say this much, our TISA projections are looking okay. But, you know, we don't know if that's new money that's going to be considered in with the raises. I don't know if the governor is raising before his tenure is out. He wants to begin a teacher and pay the $50,000 on the front end. What we got to do with ours is really get ours to the back end even better. So we have to look the next few years, making that back end more formidable. We're good with, you know, people here in the first 4 to 5 years, but we're losing teachers too, is on the back end, because we're not paying as much on the back end.
And we also know that when this ESSER funds run out, that some of these people that we have hired through ESSER funds, we're gonna have to come up with some money.
Yeah. Once we're holding our TISA projection skill, but understand too that inside that TISA is also the Cornell School Health, is the family resource, is the SROs, is the school nurses. Because we're funding our nurses anyway right now. And thank you guys for that. All that's got to come in. That's not no longer a grant that's on the outside. So we got to get once we get all that, get it worked in. And as I was speaking with the man today, I'd like to give Ms. Debbie Thompson from the states that don't mean her events, kind of look through everything and go through it. And then know exactly where, and from a perspective of how much raises, and also in that too, you got to remember what you're talking about. You want to give those people the raise, paraprofessionals, got to come to that too.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
and
I had a paraprofessional at Fairview to retire after 30 years.
Mhm.
Her retirement was $200 a month.
I've no doubt.
Well, and then the email we got last week, they discussed since COVID, how their duties have increased, what they're having to do, you know. They're doing more and not getting paid.
I know we did raise year 4 last, I think it was $800. That's the most we ever gave on that. We also gave a bonus, 2 bonuses, the year that didn't get a raise. So we try, and we look at other people's scales. I mean, they're not much better, honestly. They are better. So we need to do some things, not just for those, but any paraprofessional we got in the system, it needs to be raised. It just depends how much we can. Go from there. I'm for that, guys. I'm always for trying to get as much as we can to anybody. So, good discussion.
Ms. Carlene, you got anything else?
No, I think I'm not talking. Nobody else wants to, I don't think anybody else wants to hear me.
Hey,
Ms. Sharp?
Couldn't resist, Miss Carmen.
Ms. Sharp, you got-
No, I'll pass.
Ms. Kemp? Ms. King?
I had no bag of worms tonight.
I'm good, I'm good.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
Do what?
Make a motion to adjourn.
That's Tommy.
Oh, you got it.
For high school.
Need a second?
Second.
Can you imagine what kind of money we'd be in?
Mr. Silcox,
Yes.
Mr. Silcox, Ms. Kidd,
Aye.
Dr. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Stanley,
Aye.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Ms. Terry, Ms. Sharp.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.